curriculum, or standards development you're going to feel needs to be addressed?
And when you talk about technology, you're talking about access to technology in classrooms and technology, instructional, using it for teaching and things like that.
Yeah.
I actually don't know much about what Massachusetts is doing in terms of the use of technology, but I can tell you that one way of using technology is, and there's someone right toward the aisle, that one of the ways in which technology becomes very beneficial is through virtual learning. And there are actually only 7 states in the country that do not have statewide access to virtual coursework, and Rhode Island is one of the 7. And so that's something that we're changing right now, because we cannot miss this opportunity. We were just talking about this in the meeting I had with the superintendent and the school administrators. Just to give you an example of the power of this, when you're talking about either credit recovery or supporting students who are struggling, or also students who are high achieving and want to take, you can't imagine the classes that are available. I mean, AP French 4 or AP Environmental Engineering, or what, you imagine it, I promise there's a class for it. And in many schools, especially schools the size of the schools that we tend to have in Rhode Island, you just don't have enough students that are interested in taking that class to be able to have a whole section of it. And maybe have 5 kids that would be interested in taking it. But there are virtual classes that are available. And when I say virtual learning, you have to imagine this is not the kind of thing where it's like a worksheet on a computer screen, like some of us have experienced before. These are actual teachers with students from all over the country, in some cases outside of the country, who are coming together virtually, and students are very comfortable with this format. And I actually sat on a group that had a panel of students once with their teacher, and they had never met each other, none of it in person. So they were at this panel, they were meeting each other and their teacher for the first time. It was all very exciting. But their enthusiasm for this model was really palpable. It was just exciting. We want to make that available to Rhode Island students. But I know that's not all what you're talking about. So quickly, the access to technology varies pretty significantly across the state. We've been getting grants for a number of years through a federal grant that we have to build up more technology. So you'll see there are smart boards and these things called Elmos and different things that are in classrooms across the state that we've helped to provide. But it's mixed in terms of access, and in some cases it's not just the hardware itself, but it's actually the infrastructure and the wiring and things like that that make it a barrier for some districts and schools. So we actually asked in the budget that the Board of Regents submitted, we put forward a technology bond to help to all districts to help to increase their technological capacity. And in this budget climate, that it was not something that moved forward, but we are planning to continue advocating for that on an ongoing basis to try to improve instructional access, technology access.
Thank you for taking my question. Mine's kind of two-part. Just piggybacking on the systems question, you were talking about hardware. On one of your things, it does talk about equitable, user-friendly data systems. Is that stuff that's already going to be part of the race to the top money? Is that kind of hardware, software going to be coming sooner than later?
The data systems will be web-based. So we don't have budgeted to provide hardware for access to it. So that's where the technology bond came in, and that's something we know is an issue for some schools and some districts. But everything that we're building, it will be accessible on a web basis. So all somebody needs is an internet connection, and they'll be able to access it.
Okay. Now I know in the school budget this year, there's something for technology thrown in there. I saw the dollars. I didn't see exactly what it was specifically for. Will that be allow us to then have access to this stuff? This web-based learning type system, whether it's at the high school level or the middle school level. I don't know that it'll be the elementary level, so I guess that's where we would tap those dollars in.
I don't actually know the details of the budget here, but certainly if there is currently, a challenge with access either for individual teachers and or for students, I'm sure that's something that's already on the radar screen of the
Gotcha. And then with respect to training, especially with teacher training, my question would be, and I don't know if it's a Cumberland town or statewide question, is in terms of this access to training, is that going to be training, professional training done during the school year so that you're pulling teachers out during classroom time, or is it going to be extra dollars that are set aside so that in the summer teachers can go for extra training to move to that next level?
It's really a combination, and we're trying to avoid obviously pulling folks out of classrooms. That's something that we'd rather not do, and it's really a combination. And in some cases, actually in most cases, it'll be a district decision because districts have different access to professional development days depending on what they've negotiated in their contract and that kind of thing. So it's oftentimes gets down to what the district is able to do and when they're able to allow people to come to the training and receive the support.
Thank you. And one other question, actually, as part of that. How quickly will this stuff start to happen? I mean, are we going to start seeing this summer? Not tomorrow, I assume. But this summer, in terms of allowing these teachers to go into this extra training, or how far in advance will we start to tap into all this money that we've been given?
Yeah. Actually, training has already started. So there's one set of training that's on the world-class standards and assessments. It's called the Study of the Standards. That training has started. It started last month. The educator evaluation system, the system is now developed. It's in draft form, and it has been field tested in 2 districts and 1 charter school. And training has started for the folks who are field testing it, and then it's starting next month for people broadly across the state, and that training will continue until next school year. It's the data systems. There are 5 platforms that we're building. Actually, 2 are already up and running. One of them is InfoWorks, which is the blue booklet that you got. The other 3 are coming in. One of them for educators specifically will be available in the fall, at least portions of it. It'll improve and grow and expand over time. But there's curriculum development is already going, so we're in full implementation mode.
Sorry to bother you again. Basically, capital improvement fund. Capital improvement, how long we go with a variety of scholars, accessibility of monies for capital improvement?
Well, there's a whole process for requests for access to improvements for
There are funds available?
Pardon?
Are there currently funds available?
Well, the funds are budgeted for the capital budget on a go-forward basis. So all of the projects that are up and going right now in the state are in our capital budget, and those are funded and we're planning to move forward. And then as new projects come about, so I was just in the district last week that they have a building committee. They want to redo their building, and it's a multi-year process because they have to do their own local referendum and stuff in their own town, and then it goes before the Board of Regents, and then once it's approved by the Board of Regents, then we put it in our capital budget for that year. So there's a process that happens, and ultimately it gets into our capital budget.
Well, currently the state will provide 40% funding on capital improvement.
Yeah, it varies from district to district.
District to
Correct.
district. All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming. When districts make curriculum changes, are you involved with when doing that? The reason I ask is Cumberland switched to a physics first
Your
program.
attention, the library will be closing in 14 minutes. If you have any materials that have not been checked out, please bring it to the circulation desk at this time. No items can be checked out over here. Thank you.
They switched to this program, and as you showed, the math scores are very low. physics is a math-intensive course. Kids, my daughter's students who took the course struggled with it terribly. And my daughter has since found out that the physics first does not count as a physics class towards college. So when Cumberland did this switch, are you aware of it? Are you guys involved? Do you give feedback to them? Like how does this work? And you're going to be doing more curriculum changes. How do they make sure that the changes they're making are fitting with everything else that's going on?
We don't actually to that level. We certainly have an expectation that every district has curriculum in place, and that's why we're investing in that right now, because we know that it oftentimes is not the case. But we would not step in. I mean, I don't know that you have to definitively about it. There might be a time where we would, but it would be unlikely that we would step in and get involved with the district's decision about specific curriculum, unless I mean, it would be rare that would happen, because the way that the structure works is that the state sets the standards, meaning that what needs to be learned at different grade levels in different classes, but how that is delivered is a decision that we want local communities to make. I can tell you that Physics First is extremely popular in many places and has been, in districts where it's been implemented in Rhode Island, the performance results have been mixed, but the highest performing high school in the state is the Physics First high school. And Governor Kucheri was the sort of a champion for this model and helped to provide some startup funding for it. And I was not familiar with it. My husband has his undergraduate degrees in physics, and so I explained it to him, and he thought it made a lot of sense in that physics is considered to be sort of a foundational science way of thinking about science, and before other kinds of sciences are brought in. But I heard from the students about this today, when I met with the students actually, some of them were concerned that it would prevent them from being able to take higher level science classes later in high school. So part of it is also how is the implementation going on. You know, Physics First might look like one thing in one place and something else in another. But I would be happy to connect, you know, either parents or the district to the districts in the state that have implemented it with wild success. So, but we don't tend to get involved, other than to support the development of curriculum. We don't tend to direct how curriculum should be done. So textbooks, for example, you know, if the district is using, I hear sometimes from parents, oh, I don't like this program, but it's really a local decision.
Hi. Should I just talk? So my question kind of piggybacks off of that. With Common Core standards, I know right now our teachers are using a lot of professional development, using the Dana Center for Math and developing the scope and sequence, and that's in line with the Common Core. So once that's in place, is that what sticks now? Like my kids, they're not going to have another math program, it's going to be the Dana Center and the Common Core?
Well, I mean, I think what you're getting at is that we don't want to be flip-flopping around in terms of ways of instructing. Because if you get one kind of instruction in elementary school and then a different kind of middle school, that can be very problematic.
It feels very disjointed.
Yeah. And I think my personal opinion is that that has happened because we haven't had curriculum. That when the textbook becomes the curriculum, that you get more jumpiness as a result of that. And so when she was talking about the Dana Center, she's referring to the curriculum development work. That's the vendor that we've been using to help us get the curriculum up and going. So, I mean, I can't make any promises about that because, again, it goes back to the fact that those decisions are local decisions. But I do think that having a stable curriculum will make that less likely that that would happen.
I have 4 questions. The first question gets brought up every single meeting at our PTO, which is a principal issue. We have had 3 principals in our school this year, none of which are full-time, and none of which are there every day of the week. For the students, you know, they don't know who to go to every week, so it's very difficult. As a parent, it's very frustrating. On Monday, who am I going to talk to if I have a question? On Tuesday, oh, I forgot. He's not there, but she's there. So very hard as a parent to be comfortable with an education system when you don't have somebody stable in your school. I don't know if there is any standards in the state, you know, for interim principals. Can you have them for a year? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 years? Does it even matter? Second question.
Maybe we should do the one. Only because I may already have them all. Unless you.
That's fine.
Okay, so on that one, that's another example of something that really is a local conversation. I don't think, I'll have to check on it to be sure. I don't think there's anything that the state, you know, obviously we're concerned about leadership and stability and things like that, but again, you know, we try to keep personnel decisions and things like that, really try not to intervene unless it's just a really extreme example. So that's my response to that. So I would strongly encourage you to work with Dr. Morrell and the school committee on that. And then obviously if you feel like at some point you're not getting a resolution, you can always write to me on that email address.
Well, I think the frustration part for me and for a lot of the parents that are at our school is we keep asking the questions and we don't get any answers. And Dr. Morrell is done on June 30th. Okay, so then we have another superintendent, but who knows when they come. So then is it Dr. Morrell's responsibility to hire a principal, or is it the school committee that's going to help hire a principal? Is it the new administrator? So then maybe we come into next fall and again, we have an interim principal. I think that's the frustration that a lot of the parents at that school have.
So I would just encourage you to take that with the school committee. I don't know how frequently the school committee meets, but that would be something. And like I said, if you feel like you get to a point where you don't feel like this is being resolved, you can always reach out to me and I will work with them and the leadership on that. But with Dr. Morrell, I'm sure they would be willing to work with you on that.
Next question is regarding the charter accounts. I think it's a great, great system to have. Are we going to use that, or do you know if our school committee is going to use that for the budget season this year?
They're saying yes.
Okay. And this is a question only because I am not originally from here. And here you have every town has a superintendent. Where we're from, you have district superintendents. So I'm just going to do it for an example, only because I don't know where the cutoff would even be. Woonsocket, Central Falls, Pawtucket, Cumberland, Lincoln has one superintendent. Has this ever been even thought about in this state? Because it's a tiny state. I understand the population is a lot, but
well, technically there are 39 towns and 36 school districts. So there actually are, and then within those towns there are townships and other kinds of things. So it's not as if there's a different district for every single town, but I understand your point, which is that we have a lot of school districts and a small state. And the example that I sometimes give to people is that the district in which I taught in my last teaching position had 195,000 students in the school district, which is 50,000 more that are in the state of Rhode Island. And so I get this point. I get it really clearly. We actually think that the things that we're doing in that 5th priority, investing our resources wisely, we actually are confident that the things that we're doing within that priority of what we call statewide efficiencies are going to get us all the benefits of what you get when you have a larger district, because it means that you
The library will be closing in approximately 3
you get a
minutes.
better price
Please
on
bring your final selections to the circulation desk
supplies,
to be checked out.
you
No items can
pay
be
less
checked
for
out after 8
transportation,
o'clock.
food service,
Thank
all
you.
that. We actually are doing statewide contracts on those. So we have now a statewide contract on transportation. We had a statewide contract on food service. We have now statewide purchasing, and the General Assembly, Senator Picard, the representative, this General Assembly has been big leaders on that. And so those are the benefits that we can get from those back office kinds of things that we don't want to spend more money on because we have districts that have, 1,000 to 3,000 students. And then on the Race to the Top, we wrote our Race to the Top grant. It was designed almost as if we were a district because of the same point that you're making. Like if we had gotten our Race to the Top grant and we had just given out, you take your 20,000 and you take your 100,000, it just would have, maybe gotten a little bit of something, but it would not have had a long-term, probably wouldn't have gotten the grant, first of all, but also wouldn't have had the long-term results that we're confident that this grant is going to give us. In Florida, for example, they probably have, I would guess, 7 districts that are bigger than Rhode Island. So for them, it's a different conversation to distribute it to a district with, 500,000 kids than it is, actually, it's probably more like 300,000 kids in like Miami. That's a whole different thing than us giving Cumberland, I don't know, what is it like? No, you're Race to the Top. Like $30,000 or something. It's just not enough. But because we wrote the grant as if we were a district, Cumberland will then have access to all of these systems, all of the professional development, almost as if you were part of a bigger system. So that's how we've tried to handle that.
One other thing, Commissioner, in our earlier conversation we had back there, I'm glad you referred to, thank you. In our earlier conversation that we had back there, you reiterated the local issues, the legacy resolved at a local issue. Well, we currently have a school, okay, that is, we have problems. I will go to the local, school board and probably get something put on the agenda. But in the event, okay, that this isn't resolved, I ask for your immediate intervention because I've been down to Center Falls and I've got a school in the Cumberland district right now I'm very concerned with. And it might require your attention. So you said in the event that it can't be settled on the local issue, I look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
Sure, and I will say that you should always, everyone should always feel comfortable coming to me. That's why I gave you my email address. But it's always important to follow a process. Start with the teacher, then the principal, then the superintendent, and then if need be, the school committee, and then because that's would be, I think, most effective for everyone to handle it that way. Always feel free to reach out to me. Now, there are some things that the curriculum example is one that you might raise to my attention, and it may be that it's not something that I will be involved with because it's just not something I either have the responsibility or the authority to be involved with. And so it's just really not something I can do. But oftentimes there is something I can do. And certainly we can help to facilitate conversations. But I do think it's important to, as you said you would do,
this
all of that
pertains to students.
It pertains to public schools versus the private schools issue. We'll certainly be in contact. There are many of us in here at this time that have an issue with this. And as far as your plan, it was done in less than a couple of days, and there was no planning. It just happened. So,
No, the plan was done over many, many months.
Exactly. Mr. Block was talking about happening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Days.
Gotcha.
We'll
Okay.
let you know. We'll be there.
Okay.
Thank
You had 2 other questions. I don't know if you wanted to finish that up.
My last question is one that you had discussed, feedback for educators on your evaluation process. Are parents going to be involved in that process as well, like the self-survey that we do?
Yeah, we actually do want to see that happen at, her point is about educator evaluations for teachers and for principals. We actually want feedback from students and from parents, and also from teachers in terms of principal leadership. leadership, because all of that, I always like to do 360 evaluations on myself. It's very helpful. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the tools that we're using for that are good ones. So we're doing research right now onto what has been used in different districts and states in the country, and it'll probably be something that we roll out, probably not in the fall, for example, when we start the gradual implementation, but probably after that. But it is definitely something we're looking into. Okay, one last.
Just go ahead.
Okay.
Do you currently employ the 360s and evaluations? Is that something that's currently in place?
In
Audit
my
360s? Is there an intention on the part of you, the commissioner, to implement the same in all the school districts?
Well, I mean, 360s is it depends on how you define 360. Because a true 360, you have your peers and your subordinates, and it's a much more.
I am referring to the true 360.
So I would say probably not. What we're actually talking about for the evaluation system for teachers and principals is looking at feedback from students, from parents, and then for principals from the teachers themselves. So it's more of like using survey information to provide feedback to folks on their performance, as opposed to what you would consider a true 360. Okay, you're going to be the last. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. No. You have one? Or you were just finishing up. Okay, one more, and then we'll wrap up. Are you feeling pressure?
I am. I have a question. Just wanted to go back, and I'm very impressed with the fact that there's going to be a common curriculum across the state. That is so important when you've got 36 different communities doing 36 different things. But my question for you is, when you have those common core curriculum, you have common tasks associated with graduation requirements. Those go out to the different districts, correct? Your idea of what the common tasks should be that students are meeting for graduation, correct?
Let me have you finish, and then I want to take the whole thing and
so where I'm going with this is that I know that the interpretation of that by districts is different, especially when it comes to special education students. My big concern, and I think parents of special education students are concerned that districts will look at those common tasks and not realize that they still have to offer accommodations and modifications according to IDEA. Even if they are the common tasks, they have to be able to accommodate the special education students. And my fear is that districts may not be doing that, thinking that they're actually following the state curriculum.
Okay. Let me just clarify a couple of things. So the first is that when we talk about the Common Core, and this is education talk, so forgive me for just a second, and then I'll let you all go because we're a little bit over, but the Common Core are actually the standards. So what's happening right now is that the whole country has gotten together and said, okay, we have these standards that we're going to have a shared commitment as a country of what we want our students to know and be able to do at different grade levels. Now, we are developing curriculum at the state level, but it's actually not just one. We will probably, by the end of this process, we will probably have 4 or 5 sets of curricula for math, and it involves science and other subjects, and then 4 or 5 focused on English language arts that also incorporates different subject areas. And the idea being that we want to give people the ability to develop curriculum and have access to options, but they will all be aligned to those same standards. So there will be access to the curricula in different subjects for everybody, but not just one. There will be a few. But then to your bigger point, which is about accommodations, and my response to that is absolutely districts need to be following, obviously following the federal law, but also following, in accordance with the federal law, following what is in the students' IEPs. And this is a good example of if you have a problem with that, then we need to follow that process that we talked about a minute ago, which is work with the teacher, work with the principal, and as needed, elevate. And this is an example of where my office absolutely has a responsibility. So in some of these cases with curriculum and other things, I may be able to help, maybe not. This is an example of where we have a responsibility to intervene if something doesn't get resolved at the local level. I'm confident these folks would do that, but if need be, we're available to help with that. Okay, so I've kept you over, and I don't want to do that. Thank you. Again, I will tell you, this is a great turnout. I just commend you for that, and this was a really good discussion. I got a lot of great feedback. And please do follow up with me if there's anything that you would like to share more about. So thank you, everyone.